We've discussed these amounts at previous work sessions. Let's see, in the past, Nathan L. Jacobson used to handle all of the engineering for the special districts. Nathan L. Jacobson is the town engineering department, is another town engineering department. And let's see, they were out for RFP in 1997. Again, this is the letter, this is the reply of the majority to the comptroller's office. Let's see, the architect for New Town Hall was in 2007 and 2008. That's one of the few instances documented by the comptroller. 3 instances out of 11 that there was economic competition allowed for these public expenditures by the Southeast Town Board. Bond counsel was subject to a bid several years ago. Sterling Environmental has been put on hold for 10 years. The videographer was bid out in 2008 and 2010. Again, that's an example of allowing economic competition. An RFP for computer services will be going out in 2010. That's been voted down several times over the past couple of years. An RFP for a wetlands consultant in 2008. That's a modest expenditure relative to the significant other expenditures. We get to those in a minute. And lastly, the garbage contract was put out to bid in accordance with all New York State bidding guidelines 4 times since 1997. Of course, with respect to this final item, item L, the town board majority 3-2 accepted bid from the higher bidder. In fact, it was an $857,000 higher bidder. So that stands competition on its head. And that's not a credible basis for a response to the New York State Comptroller. There are other instances, but I wish to thank the majority for the admission that this process is broken and we need to fix it. And the way to fix it is by allowing economic competition on significant public expenditures. Now, I can also, so if there are any questions about that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
If I could just say, the meeting,
Sure.
The meeting before we received any of the draft reports, we told you, we gave it the board 5-0, I believe, voted to go out for RFPs for engineering and legal services. So we're waiting for you to draw up the RFPs and send them out.
I'm working on those. In fact, I was going to do that, whether there was a vote or not. But let's see, when I have the meeting minutes, January 21, 2010, and on the agenda was an item I had placed on the agenda for a vote, which was RFPs for legal services, engineering services, and computer services. Let's see. I can read that to you. Engineering services. Again, these are the meeting minutes from the January 21, 2010 meeting. Supervisor Wrights made a motion to authorize a draft distribution for a RFP for engineering services and equivalent services. Councilman Yee seconded. On a roll call vote, Councilman Cullen, no. Councilwoman Hudak, no. Councilman Yee, yes. Councilman Gross, no. Supervisor Wrights, yes. 3-2, those engineering services valued at $1.8 million were effectively excluded from the public competition process. There was an identical vote with respect to legal services and an identical vote with respect to computer services on that day. Again, January 21, 2010.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see what the supervisor's response was to the comptroller's report. You know, the problem is that the response was in our folder. We get these folders. The town board gets these folders at the beginning of all the meetings. And our response is in the folder, dated October 18, 2010, but I don't have the supervisor's response in the folder. I'd just like to ask where it is, because before we start, doing the usual, throwing the stones, slinging the mud, I think what's important is that we hear what his response was, which you're kind of going to hear because, once again, it's deja vu all over again. That being said, what we gave to the comptroller was the response that was required. We're saying what happened. Mr. Cullen, Councilmember Cullen and I weren't here during those periods of time, and Councilmember Gross was only here a period of that time. But what we did was we honestly placed in our response what had happened. And on top of it, we said things like, as far as AKRF, a representative who is here tonight, that was with the master plan. You remember the master plan, everyone? After several years of completing the master plan update, they were retained, meaning AKRF, to help draft the enabling legislation. What it means is you have a master plan drafted by an engineering firm and a planner, town planner, and now you need a planner to come in and implement that legislation, which means you got to have somebody say, hey, you know, what does all this stuff mean? So what are we going to do? Are we now going to send that out to somebody different? I wasn't there at the time, but I don't think it was the worst idea to take the individuals and the people who are the professionals that drafted this in a real specialty and have that person do the enabling legislation. Sterling Environmental. Hey, listen, guys, let's hear it. Sterling Environmental. What did they do? The landfill, the land capping process. They're the group that started from the beginning and went to the end, and the end is coming soon. And thank God that the end is coming soon, because the boards in the past, including the board of Supervisor Wrights and Councilmember Yee and Councilmember Gross and Honack and Johnson, they were here during a period of time when there should have been work done on this landfill. And you know something? Councilmember Cullen and I come in here in January and are told it better be done by the end of December. If it's not done by the end of December, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be fined. You better take the county garbage. And guess what? I never wanted the county garbage. Guess who might have wanted that county garbage? And to this day probably still wanted the county garbage, because there was a deal going with the what was that? The Humane Society. Oh, yeah, that's right. So the bottom line is we stood firm, and then we got a 5-0 vote. But you know something? We had Sterling Environmental. They came through for us. They've done it all. And you know something? I don't know, maybe we would have gotten an RFP out there and gotten somebody less able to do it, less able to follow through on what they did. Nate Jacobson, let's see. They've only been doing this since, I don't know, since how many years? 23, 24 years they've been our engineers? How long? 35. I'm sorry, 35 years. So,
It's a long time for no competition.
nah, it's, you know something? It's a long time to give a quality service. But yes, it's a long time to give a quality service. And you know something? The quality service has never been challenged. And remember, everyone, when you hear the great, or when you see the big check tonight, or whatever it is, because the supervisor has brought some big placards tonight, so we're going to see some more stuff like that, everyone. Get out your cameras. What's going to happen, of course, is we're going to have the Nate Jacobson, who gave us a quality service. And it was the type of a quality service that nobody questioned. And you know something? Okay, fine. Let's do an RFP, because somebody needs to get reelected. That's okay. Let's not worry about that. We'll get somebody else in here. All right, very good. Chazen, Malcolm Perney, they're used throughout special districts. Oh, gosh, I forgot. The engineering. Engineering, 1.8 million or whatever that is. Remember, everyone, that was part of it. Part of what we're dealing with is the applicants pay the fees. We're going to say that over and over again. And I'm not going to put a big placard up to say it. But the applicants pay the fees.
Liz,
So when
we talked
people
about
talk
that at
like
the
this,
last meeting. That's
I don't
also-
want to be interrupted. When people talk about this, remember it. It's not the 1.8 million. Oh, and yes, the supervisor's
Not
right.
true,
I
Liz.
did talk about it at the last meeting, and I brought forth every one of the figures. There are a whole bunch of figures that I brought out that we can bring out again ad nauseum, okay? But remember, everyone, when you hear that 1.8 million, it means that applicants pay fees. Your tax dollars are not there.
not
The
true.
last, by the way, of course it's not true. The supervisor never thinks anything that's factual or real is true.
Liz, it isn't
So then
true
we
that these
also have,
public expenditures are paid by the applicants.
we also have Severn
We talked about that at
Trent.
the last meeting. We have an accountant.
We have
have an
Severn, he hasn't
accountant's
hit the
memo.
gavel yet, though, everyone. Severn Trent. Severn Trent is a special districts person. They're the special districts company. And that wasn't brought out the last time we were here. That's special districts, guys. That's who pays those taxes.
If they're picking
But
your
you're not-
pocket in a
but
special
you're not-
district, or they're picking your pocket in
They're picking
the
a
town,
pocket in
they're
our
picking
special
your pocket.
district.
And
They're
you're hearing
picking
the
a
defense
pocket.
of it right now.
You see now, okay, I am not getting hysterical.
Thank you.
So now, in the meantime, we have the special districts towns. We have the architect for the new town. Okay, that was good. You know why? The architect for new town hall, because they were supported by the supervisor. Okay, so we just have to make sure. So they're in like Flint.
I inherited
But they've
them.
done a good job. I don't know.
I guess
don't know.
next year we'll be going out for an RFP for the
That's right,
architect.
exactly. The bond council was subjected, the videographer, oh yeah,
think
we
the
just did
comptroller
another
might
one of
make us.
those. And by the way, we had sent out, that's later on in the agenda, but we had sent out an RFP to get an ethics attorney, ethics counsel to revamp the ethics code. That comes later on, though. And I want to tell you that nobody responded to it, so we're going to send it out again, all right? But these aren't the things that anyone sees. We didn't send out an RFP copy machines, correct, Will?
We took the county bid on that.
No, we took the
And then
county
we
bid.
negotiated down.
But we didn't do an RFP, but that was handled by the supervisor's
May I have
office.
the floor,
So
please?
that was okay.
May I have the floor, please? Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman.
When I took the oath of office here, I was sworn to protect, to serve, and to save the money in the town of Southeast. Okay? The agenda item here states the gravy train. You have mentioned that engineering services and other professional services have been around for about 35 years. That's part of protecting the gravy train. What has happened here is that the New York State Comptroller's Office had come into town and had performed an audit.
As I had requested,
Exactly.
Right.
And it's something that
I knew
you
we
and
needed help.
Exactly. You and I have requested even from day one to make sure the books, the finances are in proper shape before taking office. And now that the Comptroller's Office has prepared a draft report for us to review, and despite its confidentiality, there are urgent matters, fiscal matters, that need to be addressed immediately. And that's what this debate has been for the last few weeks. We needed to discuss this in an executive session. It was not discussed. It has not been brought up to be discussed whatsoever. And what I can tell you is that when 3 members of the board decide that they are the majority, and then decide for this community what should be placed and how it should be conducted, leaving us out and putting in your response and not contacting me at all, I wonder sometimes if you have an illegal quorum or how you put together your report and then end up signing it and sending it to the Comptroller's Office. So when you mentioned that I, too, prepared my own response, it was because I had known that you would do that 3 members of the town board would sit down together and draft a report that basically protects the gravy train. And the beginning of my paragraph to the town board and the chief examiner of the Comptroller's report is that the Southeast Town Board consists of 5 members, and all members must be consulted regarding matters directed to the town board, as well as the town of Southeast. Councilpersons Cullen, Gross, and Hudak have excluded me, my response, and participation in their collective answer to the New York State Comptroller's Office report. The Southeast Town Board must collectively agree to oversee the fiscal affairs of the town of Southeast and comply with all applicable laws in order to maintain fiscal strength. The Southeast Town Board must immediately accept the New York State Comptroller's findings and recommendations, execute a corrective action plan that will help the town of Southeast manage government resources effectively and provide accountability for tax dollars. And basically I want to end by saying Home Depot has their slogan, and it says, more savings, more doing. That's the power of Home Depot. It appears to me that the town of Southeast has a slogan that is more spending, more doing, and that's the power of the town board. And that's wrong. We're here to, and you ooh and ah,
There's just
because
a couple of them.
yeah, just a few of you ooh and ah each and every week because either you're fans of spending money or you're not fans of collecting your 20% certificate or discount from Macy's or wherever else. But we have an obligation because it's not our money, it's the community's money. And that's what we're trying to save. So when we mention the garbage contract over and over again, when the town board majority decided to go with the higher bidder and spend almost $1 million more to put the contents of your garbage in the back of the truck, I find out that's outrageous. And I will continue to fight that. I will continue to protect this town because that is my job. And I resent that 3 members of the board continue to act as if they are the gravy train and they are the majority, and they continue to speak and not allow our voice to be heard. Thank you.
If I could
Okay, I just,
add-
Councilman Cullen has the floor. Councilman
Okay.
Cullen.
As far as the response to the Comptroller's report, originally, when Michael and myself and then you later met with the Comptroller, they said that there could only be the response from the town supervisor. That's what they wanted, one response. There was never
You
any...
wanted one response from the town board, Bob. And
No,
and there
from
was
the
not an
supervisor.
opportunity to do that.
And then when you responded to them without consulting with us, you wrote your response. It was so off base and had nothing to do with anything. The Comptroller was confused and wanted it and said, I wish I had the email with me, but I have it on my home computer. Didn't understand why this was the response and